Hey, welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Underworld Kings, The Rise and Fall. Picture this. You're a traveler in early 19th century India, on a dusty, sun-bleached road between two ancient towns. A group of men approaches you, friendly, offering to share the road for safety. They're pilgrims, they say, heading to a distant shrine. You feel relieved. The road is dangerous. You walk together, they share stories, they share food. And then, as the sun sets and you make camp, the mood shifts. One of them produces a rumal, a simple handkerchief. The last thing you see is the kindness gone from his eyes. And the last thing you feel is that cloth, twisted expertly around your neck, ending your life without a sound. You have just met a Thuggee. This is the story of a secret society so embedded in the fabric of its time that for centuries, it was less a criminal organization and more a dark, accepted thread in the tapestry of Indian life. A religious cult of ritual stranglers who murdered, by some estimates, over 1 million people. This is episode 31, the Thuggee cult, the secret society of stranglers who preyed on colonial India. To understand the Thuggees, we have to strip away the Hollywood image of wild-eyed fanatics in dark temples. The reality was far more chilling because of its normalcy. These weren't monsters lurking in shadows. They were your fellow travelers, farmers, even respected community members for most of the year. Thuggee was a hereditary profession, passed from father to son, a grim family trade disguised as devotion. They believed they were in service to Kali, the Hindu goddess of destruction and creation. The murder itself was a form of worship, a sacrifice, and they followed a strict, almost bureaucratic code. They never killed women, they never killed the disabled. Certain professions like musicians or washermen were off-limits. They saw their victims as offerings, and the loot, the money, the silks, the jewels, was simply the goddess's bounty, to be divided with ritual precision. The method was everything. The rumal, the sacred handkerchief, often weighted with a coin at the corner for momentum. The sotha, the pickaxe used to dig the graves, which were considered the womb of the goddess. They had their own secret language, Ramasi, to communicate in front of marks. The roles were clear. The butto was the strangler, the shumsi lured the victim in, the luga dug the graves. It was a system, a craft, and it worked terrifyingly well because in a land of constant movement, of pilgrimage and trade, strangers disappearing on the road was a tragic, but unsurprising, fact of life. The British colonial authorities, for decades, didn't even know a systematic cult existed. They just saw a continent with a lot of unsolved robberies and missing persons. That changed because of one man, Captain William Henry Sleeman. In the 1830s, Sleeman, an officer in the British East India Company, began piecing together fragments of confessions from captured dacoits, ordinary bandits. He noticed eerie similarities in the descriptions of killings, the handkerchief, the rituals. He realized he wasn't chasing scattered gangs. He was uncovering a vast, pan-Indian conspiracy. What followed was perhaps one of the first large-scale, systematic criminal investigations in modern history. Sleeman set up the Thuggee and dacoity department. He used informants, he meticulously cataloged evidence, and he offered clemency to Thuggees who turned approver, who named names. The scale of the network they uncovered was staggering. It wasn't a single gang. It was a fraternity, a secret society with members who recognized each other through coded gestures and phrases across hundreds of miles. The trials were a spectacle. Confessions poured out, detailing murders decades old. One approver, called Feringia, famously confessed to over 700 murders. The British, both horrified and fascinated, documented everything. And here's where the story gets complex, and where my perspective as an engineer and a storyteller from South Asia really leans in. The British narrative was clear. They were the civilized force eradicating a savage, ancient evil. It became a potent justification for their colonial rule. Look at the darkness we are saving you from. And there's no doubt Sleeman's campaign stopped a horrific practice. Thousands of Thuggees were arrested, hundreds executed or transported for life. But history is rarely that binary. Scholars now debate the extent and the nature of Thuggee. Was it a unified cult, or a loose collection of criminal fraternities who used similar methods and religious cover? Did the British, in their need to create order and justify control, consolidate and perhaps even exaggerate the organization's coherence? The word thug itself, which we use so casually today, comes from this history, a label that carried the weight of colonial fear and judgment. It's a classic case of the victor, the empire, writing the history of the underworld king they deposed. For me, Ibnul, sitting here in New York thinking about this from a world away, the lasting chill of the Thuggee story isn't just the violence. It's the duality. The idea that a man could be a loving father, a good neighbor, and then, when the season was right and the omens were good, transform into a ritual killer. It speaks to the human capacity to compartmentalize, to justify almost anything within a closed belief system. Their faith didn't just allow the violence, it demanded it. That's a psychological underworld more profound than any secret handshake. It also makes you think about the landscape of crime itself. The Thuggees were a product of a very specific time and place. A fragmented India with weak central authority, vast unpatrolled roads, and a culture of pilgrimage. They were a parasitic organism perfectly adapted to their host. The British, with their obsession with records, roads, and centralized law, created an environment in which that organism could no longer survive. Sleeman didn't just arrest criminals, he made their entire world obsolete. So what are we left with? A word in our lexicon, a template for secret societies and fiction, and a haunting question about the line between faith and fanaticism, between community and conspiracy. The Thuggees are gone, but the human impulses that created them, the need for belonging, the power of ritual, the ability to dehumanize the outsider, those are very much still with us. They just were different disguises. Thank you for listening to this deep dive into the shadows. If you found this story of history's hidden structures fascinating, please do share the episode with someone else who loves a true historical mystery. For more deep dives into the rise and fall of the world's most fascinating underworld kings, make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. This is Ibnul J. Farabi for Light Not Studios. Until next time, stay curious. Visit us at https://www.lightnotstudios.com.